water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Screen Tested. I am your host Tyrant, where we take things from movies, TV shows, games, pop culture, try and create them in the real world, and then test them and compare them one-to-one from the media they come from. And in today's episode, we are testing Sokka's Boomerang from the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. Now, I have actually kind of tested this before over on Shadowversity, of which I am a host. I think that we're one of the only videos on YouTube currently, until this one comes out, actually testing Sokka's Boomerang. And ever since that episode, I've wanted to revisit it. And the reason why is, well, the boomerang actually broke halfway through the episode, and up until that point,
Nate's first throw.
Hey, it was actually producing some interesting results. So ever since then, I've wanted to create one in real life made out of metal that could be used as a one-to-one comparison. And not at all because I lost on that episode. The problem is, you just did your... This doesn't count!
Yes! Yes, that hit!
He hit the shit.
That hit!
So, starting off, there are going to be a couple of points that I'm going to try and recreate one-to-one that Sokka does in the show. Starting off with actually freeing my shoes from ice. He uses the boomerang as kind of like a hatchet or a mini axe to break the ice around his shoes and free himself. So that's one of the ones that I'm going to be trying to create first. Next up, I'm going to be using it against some fruits, some easy kind of targets, just to see how much damage the boomerang can do in a general sense, because I can't really throw it at people's heads, which Sokka really likes to do. And hey man, I understand, but I can't do that. And Nate won't let me throw it at his head. Next up, I'm going to be trying to throw the boomerang and have it return at least once. I feel like if I'm able to consistently get it very close, I will consider that a win, but for the most part, trying to throw it and catch it at least once, I will consider that a success. Then lastly, we are going to be using the boomerang as a grappling hook. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to climb with it. I don't think it'll be able to handle my weight. However, I do think that it should be pretty reasonable to use the boomerang as a grappling hook of sorts, be able to get a good purchase on something and a strong connection, but I'm just not going to climb because, I'll probably break it. Then lastly, maybe if I get time, we might try and cut a spearhead or a shaft or a wooden dowel, because he also does that in the show. I don't think that one's possible because I've actually cut a spear in half before with a sword, and it was difficult. So I know that this thing probably won't succeed in that. Anyways, there is one last thing that I should mention before we get on with today's episode, and that is I only have 48 hours to completely finish this episode. Now I want to say that again, 48 hours to completely finish this episode. That doesn't mean just filming it. I have to film it, build it, test it, edit it, and have it uploaded and ready to go within a 48-hour period. I've never gotten a screen tested episode done that quickly, so I have no idea how this is going to go. But just so you guys understand how much time I have on the clock ready to get this episode done, I will put a little bit of a counter here that will count down the hours until I am out of time. And when I am out of time, this episode will go out to the public, out to you guys, no matter what state it is in, whether it's finished or not, it will be going out, period. So I need to get started right now. You're probably wondering why I'm starting at 22 hours and not 48. It's really simple. First up, when you factor in something like sleep, then all of a sudden it becomes 2 12-hour days, 24 hours. But that still doesn't account for those missing 2 hours. Well, I'm already behind schedule. You see, my boot drive on my SSD actually was corrupted today. So when I tried to turn on my PC, I had to format my SSD and then reinstall an OS. So I'm already 2 hours behind schedule. This is fantastic. Everything's going exactly according to plan. So for today's episode, I'm going to be using aluminum to make Sokka's Boomerang instead of steel. And you're probably wondering why. And the answer is, well, there's a couple of reasons. First up, in terms of time, I don't think I have enough time to cut out the steel and then grind it and then shape it. Next up, it's going to be a lot heavier than aluminum. Aluminum is a lot more lightweight, so for something like a boomerang that I need to throw and have it return, I just feel like I'm going to get more success with that. And then lastly, once I actually sharpen up one of the edges to create like an aerofoil so that hopefully it'll have some sort of boomerang effect, that creates basically a chisel. And I don't want that in steel coming at me to catch. It's just not a good idea, you know? Like, there's a reason why Sokka uses his boomerang on the Fire Nation when he throws it at their faces. It would be effective, is what I'm getting at, yeah. So I'm not gonna do that. So starting with the build for today's episode, I had to use what I had in the workshop, and that happened to be a aluminum sheet. Now, I was going to use this for a different project that now I obviously have to buy more aluminum for, but that's for another episode. For today, I'm going to be using this aluminum sheet, marking out Sokka's boomerang shape, and then cutting it out with future Tyrant here, interrupting past Tyrant very quickly. It seems that in my haste, I forgot to press the record button when I was cutting the aluminum. So the boomerangs are going to go from when I drew on the stencil to them already cut out. Whoops. My bad. Then after I do that, I'm actually going to drill a whole bunch of little holes through both of the pieces and then thread all of the little holes that I've drilled. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to hold both of the pieces together with both epoxy and aluminum screws. So after I've done that and I've threaded all of them through, I will use 3 steel screws in each of the corners just for that little bit of extra strength. I will use these little aluminum thumb screws that I have and snap them off on both ends and then sand them flush on the aluminum so that they blend in and they don't stick out too much. Then it is a long and arduous process of sanding down the boomerang. I left a lot of meat on it. I wanted to use the original outline as more of a suggestion than anything else, so I could get a feel for how big I actually wanted the blade. Now the reason why I wanted to do this is actually really simple, because if you actually take into consideration how big the boomerang is compared to Sokka, he is a teenager and I'm not a teenager. So I wanted to make it a little bit more proportional, but not too big at the same time. So I just kind of winged it, really. Then from there, I just grind in some of the bevels, only on one side because we want to create an aerofoil, of course. To finish out the boomerang, I will use a Scotch-Brite pad to try and clean it up and make it look a little bit pretty. Now it's finally time to put this thing to the test. And now it's time for the beautiful B-roll. Yes, I've even got some B-roll with my limited time. Some quick beauty shots, and I don't know how much time I have left on the clock, so let's just get to it right now. I've got to go and do some shopping because one of the tests requires something specific and it requires prep time. Usually I'd have all this stuff done in advance. I've got to go shopping right now. I've got to go get some gumboots and then put them in the freezer so they are ready for tomorrow for the tests. So I'm going to go do that right now. So getting started, we are just going to try out some of the, the cutting capacity of the boomerang, and we'll see what happens with all these different mediums. So let's get started. That's not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. Let's do it again. All right, let's try to. I'm destroying cabbages in inflation. That costs like $5. Next up, mango this. Oh, that one hurt. That's not too bad at all. Especially for aluminum, remember. It water bended on me. All right, these here are my ice shoes. They have gotten nice and rock solid overnight. So let's open them up, put them on, it's cold, and see how I also bought a couple of sizes too big just to make sure my feet would still fit in there. All right. Let's do this. Now, I don't want anybody to be weird about feet stuff. I don't want to see any pictures, any memes, or any of that shit. All right. Ah, that's cold. That's cold. That's cold. Oh, that's very cold. Let's go. It worked! That was easy as well. Oh, now my socks are all wet. We did get a bit of bending on the tip though. Fix that up easy. This thing worked awesome as an ice pick. I am not sure how much time is left on the clock, but I've only got like 20 minutes to do this. So let's see if I can do a couple of throws and hopefully it returns. I know that, I don't know what's gonna happen right now, but all right, let's do this. First throw. That was cool. First throw actually went surprisingly well. I'm not sure how much was captured on the camera, but instead of just being thrown like an axe or a hatchet or something, it actually started to, you know, move around a bit. And to be honest, there is currently no wind. So if there was heavy wind, it might actually return. I don't know, we'll do a couple more throws and we'll see what happens. Okay, all right. Getting the hang of this. So it seemed to curve back when I threw it that way. Curved over that way. So if I throw it over there, logic dictates it should come back a bit. Holy, that thing is wicked. It's booming time. Alrighty, last throw. Let's see how much distance I can get. Haven't been able to get it to return. Hopefully it can go really far though. Boomerang, you do always come back. It's not as far as like a hunting boomerang or something, but that's pretty crazy for metal. Remember, that's made of aluminum. But we've got one final test before we finish out, and my time is almost out. Let's do this very quickly. All right, last and final test. Let's see if we can get purchase and use this as kind of like a grappling hook. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm not actually gonna climb because none of this will take my weight. However, if I'm able to get it over and it sticks, I'll consider it a success. Now, this is how he had it tied in the anime. Let's see if it works. I'm gonna try and throw it just like a boomerang over, see if that does it. Oh, that was cool. Almost got it. All right, let's go again. Throwing this boomerang, oh, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, look at that. I have proved that you can use it as a grappling hook. Yeah, baby. See that? Against my better judgment, I will do something stupid, as is my nature. That's pretty much my weight. Ah. But it worked. It worked as a grappling hook. You do always come back. Alrighty, that's all the time I have to do Sokka's boomerang from Avatar. This thing worked in a whole bunch of ways that I didn't expect it to. Now, I couldn't use steel because it would have been too heavy, but using aluminum, it is lightweight enough to actually get some sort of boomerang effect. However, I have no wind today, so maybe if there was higher winds, it would perform better in terms of actually coming back. I don't know, it's just one of those things that I might have to follow up on in a different video. But ice pick works. Cutting things, like if I was to throw it at Nate's head or somebody with a helmet's head on, it'd probably work. Using it as a grapple hook, it also worked. This thing is actually really cool. It's a boomerang, but on top of that, it could be an axe or a melee weapon. And you have the added benefit of it being a projectile. I really like this weapon and I'm very happy that I did a follow-up on it. But I think that's all for today. Whatever time is left on the timer is now all for editing. But that's gonna be all for today, guys. Remember to like and subscribe, leave a comment down below, and hit the bell notification so you get notified every time a new episode is out. I gotta go. Have a good one, guys.